Okay, so in this tutorial I wanted to show you guys how you could track front-end JavaScript errors in a tool such as Google Analytics. This is something that you probably do want to track. If you push some code changes and you start getting a ton of errors, or clients start generating tons of errors, you don't really have that visibility unless you have some monitoring in place. You can use Google Analytics for this, and it will give you daily charts, but it can also give you real-time data on that. There are tools that do this as a service. One is called Rollbar. They do a pretty good job. Another one is JS Logger. I think they do a decent job as well. I don't know much about these companies, but I guess the idea, it validates the idea and the need for for tracking this sort of thing. So instead of using one of these companies, you can create one of these scripts yourself. So I guess for the sake of this example here, we have our web server. This is a very basic website. There's really nothing on it. We just have jQuery and some HTML. What we'll do is we'll insert our tracking script. We'll set it up with Google Analytics, and then we'll start generating errors, and I'll show you guys what that looks like in Google Analytics. So first we want to create a new property in Google Analytics because we don't have one for this website. So let's just call it test website. And hopefully it works with an IP. I've never done this before. Should work. Great. So what we want to do is we want to include Google Analytics on our page. So let's just grab this. And I'm SSH'd into the server. So let's just edit this error page. What we're going to do is we're just going to insert our Google Analytics tracking script. We should start seeing beacon requests now. So I'm going to open up the network tab. Okay, we can see analytics.js got pulled in, and then we can also see this beacon. And I think that is this right here, page view request. So that looks pretty good. Let's just make sure we have the charts looking copacetic. Okay, so it looks good here. It looks like we're already all set up. The way Google Analytics works is it crunches once a day by default, but it also has this real time. Yeah, and you can just see that page view that we just sent. It has this real time mechanism, which is awesome. So we're in the real time view right now. So if I reload the page, reload a couple times, I should see this in the real time view. And I do. 1, 2, 3. 4. Perfect. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set up our script that what it's going to do is it's going to listen for front-end JavaScript errors, and if it hears them, if a user generates them, it's going to pass them to Google Analytics, and we're going to get a nice kind of chart. Well, we won't get the chart because we're not going to crunch a day, but we'll look at the real time and we should see the errors being generated. So right now these are page views, but we're going to change it so that we're seeing the errors. Now you need a special script in order to track errors. I've come up with one that I think is pretty good, and I'll explain it to you guys. So let's first throw this on the page. And as far as errors go, there's one thing to note. You can't generate errors from the console. They have to be generated from the actual page. So that's one thing to note. So if you see your script not being called when you're generating errors from the console, that's why. So I'll share this script on like GitHub, or if you go to the full blog post, I'll share the script there. But what this script does is it creates a callback. So anytime we're going to attach to this window.onError event, and when an error is created, our function is going to run. Now the additional stuff here just has to do with, the onError event is not supported by every browser, so we want to make sure that that's defined. And then we don't want to overwrite the window.onError function. If someone else is using it, such as rollbar or JS logger, we want to let them do their thing. So we're going to save the original, and then we're going to run the original, and we'll just add our stuff here. And so what this code is here is when the error runs, when the error is generated, this is how you send a beacon event to Google Analytics. We're going to use the send method, and we're going to populate that method with some contextual data, hit type event, category FEO, which is something I just passed, front end optimization, which is what category this falls under, and then action is error, label is error. So let's throw this on the page. Let's make sure that it gets put on the page. All right. It's on the page. It looks good. So what we need now is we need to generate errors so that it'll be sent off to Google Analytics. So as I said, you can't generate the errors from the console. It won't trigger it. So we need to generate errors from the actual page. And in a practical perspective, what we're trying to do here is a user would be interacting with the page, and some error gets thrown that we're not aware of. Well, now we can see that in the charts. So if we see tons of errors start to get thrown, well, we can now act on that data. So that's what's cool about this function. We use this on Ask MacGyver just to monitor all our errors. So it's really useful. But okay, so we have this. Well, let's now write a script that will generate errors. So at the very end here, for the sake of showing this, I am going to write a script that generates errors. So we're going to use set interval, which means it's going to run for every interval period of time. It's going to run this function. So let's do it so it runs at every 3 seconds. And what we're going to do for an error, let's call a function that doesn't exist. And that'll give a not defined. And we should see these errors get logged in the console, and then we should also see beacon requests being made because the onError event's being called. And then we could also look in the reports, and we should see that as well. So let's save that. Let's first see that it's working. Okay, so let's save this, and then let's re-request the page. Let's look at the console. Okay, so we can see the errors being generated every 2 seconds. And you can see the beacons being fired off every 2 seconds. Now, let's look in Google Analytics and see if we can find this. So we're in the real-time view. Let's go to events, because that's what this is. And then you can see FEO. And you can see these errors in real time. Now, if we wanted, we could get a daily chart, and we could see like, 300 a day, 500 a day, 200 a day, ideally 0 a day. But we can also get real-time insights on this. So just for fun, instead of doing it every, what do we have, 3 or 4 seconds? 3 seconds? Let's do every 500 milliseconds. Let's see if we can see that chart blow up a little bit more. yeah, you can see it start to come through. And you can see this chart just start to rise. Yeah, because these FEO events are coming in. But so I mean, you could track anything you want, but I think it's super useful to have front-end errors being tracked. I'm going to stop this because that's a lot. But yeah, it's super useful to track front-end errors. And as far as the script goes, I will share this in the full blog tutorial, or I'll share it on GitHub or something similar. You can probably pretty much use this script, but you might want to rework it a little bit for yourself. And as you can see, since we stopped the page, the errors stopped coming in. And then tomorrow, if we wanted to create an actual dashboard looking at these FEO events, the errors, we could do that as well, and we could see on a daily basis the errors being generated. But I don't know, I just think it's useful to have, so that is how you track front-end JavaScript errors with Google Analytics.